Hi, this is Joe for NJS4E. This is, we're just about to talk to the man. I mean, I can't even quantify in words what this guy has done. This is, of course, Kevin Sugar Daddy Woodley.
Correct.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Very good. Excellent. Good to meet you, by the way.
Yeah. So how's New York City keeping you?
New York City's incredible. I've been a disc jockey in New York for the last 31 years.
Yeah.
In June, it'll be my 32nd year as a disc jockey in New York.
And somewhere along the line, do you still manage to be A&R at Atlantic?
Yeah, somewhat. Still manage to, you know, get hit records to them, and yeah, it's amazing.
So how did the connection with yourself and Atlantic come about?
Well, it started before. I worked at Columbia before that. And what happened at Columbia was I was, well, before I even got to Columbia, I worked in radio in New York, Kiss FM. I worked there for 3 years in the program department. And what I did was I was able to pick records that go on the air. And my mentors were a guy named Barry Mayo, who now runs a major radio chain. I don't want to say the name of it, but it's called, well, it's Radio 1. He runs Radio 1, which is a huge, you know, multicultural, urban pop across the board, you know, urban leaning, I guess you'd say, radio chain. And before that, he ran 3 stations here in New York: Hot 97, Kiss FM. I'm sorry, you know, Hot 97, Kiss FM, and CD 101, the jazz station. Barry Mayo sort of mentored me in radio, brought me in to work in the programming department. Him and a guy named Tony Gray, who was like a major consultant in the record radio business. They started me in radio. I played in a nightclub down the block from where Kiss FM was at the time, called Bentley's, which is where New Jack Swing really began. A place called Bentley's. So Andre Harrell, Russell Simmons, Puffy, they all came, they all hung out there, they all partied there. And when the genre started, Teddy Riley partied there. Teddy Riley would give me records and give them to me on cassette, that's going way back.
Yeah. And
say, yo, what do you think? Play this record. Even guys like Full Force, you know, they had Lisa and Cold Jam. They had UTFO. They gave me their first records and all their hit records. They brought me their records on cassette. I then in turn would take them to labels or take them to radio and either play them or induce Barry Mayo or anybody else to play the records because I thought they were hits. To me, my opinion was that my crowd liked it and they would like it. So I worked as a disc jockey. A guy named Cecil Holmes came to, he heard about me basically being a DJ. He came to the club, heard me play, offered me a job at A&R at Columbia Records. Then at that point he and I signed Lisa and Cold Jam. We signed New Kids on the Block, Johnny Kemp, Full Force, and on and on. And so as a result of all that, it turned into a really good thing. So New Jack Swing really kind of got its beginning in Bentley's. Andre Harrell was just like basically an internee for Russell Simmons at the time. And then he started his own label. And it was, his first album was featuring Heavy D. It was an album called Uptown's Kicking It. He brought it to me, played a couple of records, and then before you know, Heavy took off. You know, they were doing remixes. Eddie F and Johnny Gill, Eddie F and the Bell Hodge rather did Johnny Gill, Rub You the Right Way. They did TLC. Then they did Mary, and New Jack was gone.
So you mentioned Mary there.
Yeah.
You were responsible for making that record come too.
Actually, my cousin and I, my cousin Kurt Woodley and I. Kurt was an A&R person, and he actually managed Mary. And I was an A&R person at Columbia. And he instead of taking it to me, he decided to take it to Uptown because he felt like Uptown was a better vibe. And I think at that time it was a better fit. But Kenny Greene, who was a member of a group that I had called Intro, was a songwriter. So he wrote most of at least the first 4 hits she had. So yeah, that's how it was involved.
But that's amazing. That's a big deal. I mean,
I think so. But
Mary J. Blige has gone on to
superstar. She even has a new hit record that's hot. Mary's amazing. She's an amazing artist. She's always been, you know. And to me, I think the real thing about artists that I like is when they're real. She was real. She was always down to earth. She was always gritty, and she still is. Even though she's older, more sophisticated, the real New Jack that's in her is really what she's about.
So when an executive producer executively produces a record, what is involved?
Basically, in finding the writers, finding the producers, finding people to make the project go. And you're hiring producers and hiring writers and getting people that are going to take the project and make it really work, make it, you know, a success.
And you did Intro's first album?
Yeah, I signed the Intro, did the first album, which was an incredible album, you know, which is, to me, still a classic, and to many people, still a classic.
There's a lot of fans of that particular album in Europe.
Yeah, they never stop. That group still sells to this day.
But what happened? I mean, the album did well, but it wasn't as big as I think it should have been. I think that should have been.
Well, I'll tell you what I think happened. What I think was Atlantic at that time wasn't really well in tune to the street like Uptown was. And Uptown was able to take everything that was New Jack. If you looked at Jodeci in the beginning, they weren't New Jack artists, and then they sort of shifted them that way because that's the way music was going. Atlantic wasn't really that well versed in how to make an artist break in that genre. They could take an artist like Levert and blow it up and sell a million records or 2 million or whatever. They could take a crossover artist like Joe Albright and make it work. They could even take Gerald Levert as a solo artist and make it work. But to make a group like that succeed took a lot. Now, the engine wasn't really there. We had half of it, but not the whole thing. And we thought that the second album would do more, but just didn't.
For the second album,
I didn't do the second album.
Okay, you weren't involved.
No, I was involved.
So there's heavy promotion on that as well. I mean, they spent a lot of on the promos and stuff. The quality was higher.
I think they spent a lot, and they had because you have a group with sales base, you want to spend more. But I don't think the records were there. I think the key for me, anyway, was songs. Finding songs. If you listen to the first Intro album, every single song, to me, is a hit.
It kills you.
Yeah, it does. Every single song. You can just press play and let it run. And never stop and let it repeat.
I mean,
that kind of album.
We had this one idea with NJS4E. We want to do some kind of tribute for Kenny Greene.
That would be great.
Because I can't explain to somebody that doesn't know who Kenny Greene is, because I feel like he's like a forgotten guy.
Right.
And now that he's passed, people are talking about him even less.
Right.
And I think that's unfair considering his immense talent, and his songwriting ability, his vocalist vocals are amazing.
Amazing, that's right. And he wasn't always a singer, he sang late. He started singing when he was 18. He wasn't always a singer. He always went to church and acted pop, but he wasn't a singer from the time he was 12 or anything like most other people. He was sort of a late bloomer as a vocalist, but incredible. And I think what really helped Kenny was he listened to groups like Commission and listened to Fred Hammond and how he delivered songs, and he studied it, and then he went from there. Back to the tribute, I would love that. I would love to be a part of it. I'd love to even spearhead it, because a lot of people really, out of sight is out of mind. People don't know what happened to Kenny. And I was with Kenny in the final days of his life, and I spent a lot of time with him.